Hi, everyone. I'm Phillip Marangella, Chief Marketing and Product Officer at EdgeConneX.
And I'm David Miller, the VP of Business Development at Gridmatic.
Today, the two of us are going to talk to you about how data centers are not only enabling AI, but we're also leveraging AI itself to operate these data centers sustainably. To begin, I'd like to give you a little background on EdgeConneX. We've been around for close to 15 years. We have built out a global platform of data centers around the world of over 60 data centers, almost 80 if you count all the data centers that are currently under construction, across 50 markets, 4 continents, and hundreds of megawatts of deployments across that global footprint. We focus solely on service providers, network service providers, content, cloud, and now AI as our key customers. And how we work with those customers is unique in the sense that we build purpose-built data centers for them. We don't make them come to us. We work with them and collaborate with them to bring the data center capacity where they need it, when they need it, and how they need it. Critical to that as well is how we operate sustainably. We focus on our customers, we focus on our people who build our data centers and who we partner with, and we focus on the planet. In doing so, we want to make sure we operate sustainably in everything we do, from carbon to water to waste, so that we can be a truly global citizen and focus in supporting building out data centers sustainably. As you look to AI, that's also going to create a tremendous demand and a burden on data center build-outs and the power requirements to do that. And so that's why it's what we wanted to talk about with you today is how we're leveraging AI itself and our partner with Gridmatic to figure out how we can leverage power more efficiently, we can access renewable energies more prominently, and integrate that into the data center more frequently to be able to operate sustainably around the world. Again, as I mentioned, if you look at our global footprint, we have a broad product portfolio across all these dots on the map. We have everything from cable landing stations that connect continents between North America and Asia. We have edge data centers that bring content and cloud closer to consumers and enterprises around the world. And we also have massive hyperscale data center campuses that support both cloud and AI within the same facility. Whether it's from the West Coast of the US to Southern Europe or Eastern India, right? All these data centers have that common notion around trying our best to operate efficiently and effectively for our customers. So just to step back a little bit, what do we see as an industry in terms of AI and the impact it's going to have on data centers? Again, I had alluded to the fact that cloud and some of the previous ways that have driven the demand for data centers have created, we're all building at maximum capacity, right? We have over the last few years have had tremendous demand to build out new cloud facilities around the world for hyperscalers. And the thing is, with the sudden rise of AI and ChatGPT only 2 years ago, you now fast forward to 2024 and you look forward to 3 years, you're going to see a quadrupling of the demand for data centers, for power of those data centers, that's going to equal or even surpass the total amount of cloud capacity that has been required over the previous 10 years. So that creates an unprecedented demand on all the infrastructure that it takes to build out these data centers. But most importantly, it's going to impact the amount of power that we're going to need to build these data centers. If you look at the top data center markets in the world, you can look at how much power is being consumed in these markets. And you can see these are not insignificant amounts in terms of the amount of megawatts and gigawatts required to power these data centers. So everything that we can do to more efficiently operate our data centers, lower the PUE, reduce the carbon footprint that we have, reduce the amount of water that we use, reduce the amount of waste we create, is going to have a tremendous impact on the environment. Again, as you can see how this global map also mimics our global footprint. And we'll continue to add dots around the world. But all the while be critical in terms of the power we're going to drive, where we're going to go, how we're going to use that power, and so forth. And what's going to be great is you're going to hear from David at Gridmatic of how we've done that in a more efficient way to leverage renewable energy and integrate that into our existing platform. Again, in terms of sustainability, it's so critical, not only for us, but also for our customers. They too have commitments by 2030 to be carbon neutral or even carbon negative. And we also have those same commitments. We are very transparent about what our goals are and how we track and report that. And that's also the advantage of working with Gridmatic and leveraging AI, is leveraging the data that we capture every day, every hour, every second in terms of the usage of our facility, and then feed that back into the AI platforms so that going forward, we can figure out how to more efficiently leverage the power and how we operate our data centers. Again, AI is going to create a tremendous opportunity for us, and it's going to create a tremendous demand for data center services. And we're always trying to also at the same time leverage that AI so we can scale our business more effectively, we can support our customers around the world, and we can more efficiently leverage the power that is so critical and necessary to support these deployments around the world. So with that, you can get a good sense of what data centers do, what we enable. And now I'm going to turn to David, and he can talk to you about their solution and their platform and how they've leveraged AI to help us as a data center operator be more green and more efficient in how we operate our data centers. David, I turn over to you.
Thank you, Philip. I'll give a quick introduction to Gridmatic and then dive into the work that we've been doing together. Gridmatic was founded in 2017 by an ex-Google senior engineer who's an AI expert, and the technical innovation that Gridmatic has brought to the market is using AI-based models to predict supply and demand of electricity on the grid, as well as the electricity prices. And I always have to make a quick aside here that electricity is really priced in a very granular way. In the US alone, there's tens of thousands of prices for electricity at different locations across the country every 5 minutes. And this level of dynamic prices that respond to the supply and demand is really not an intuitive thing, because end users of electricity typically don't see this on their power bills. They just see a fixed number. But the power plants and the utilities or other entities that send end users a power bill are subject to these very dynamic prices. And as a company, Gridmatic's view is that the energy transition that is occurring is inevitable in the sense that a lot of new wind and solar power is going to come to the grid. But they have variability in their output, and so it's not inevitable that this transition will occur smoothly. And Gridmatic's focus is really delivering power that is clean, cheap, and reliable to our customers. We're excited to partner with EdgeConneX because a big component of achieving our mission is helping commercial industrial customers users decarbonize, which we'll talk about more today. We often get asked, what is a power marketing company, which is how we describe ourselves. And for the full picture, we're really using AI-based forecasting to help balance the grid. On the supply side with generators, we help renewable energy providers like wind and solar farms understand how to best bid into electricity markets. On the demand side, we match that renewable energy with consumers like EdgeConneX who want to decarbonize their supply. And then storage is having an increasingly important role to play in balancing supply and demand. And our AI forecasting can help battery owners know when to charge and discharge to help respond to the grid's needs and optimize their performance. Having advanced forecasting capabilities enables better outcomes for all the participants in this ecosystem. The way we see it, AI is really no longer a nice to have for energy stakeholders, energy participants. It's really an imperative. And the issue is that any entity that is subject to the volatility in commodity power markets needs some way to forecast and manage that volatility. The traditional approach to managing volatility is to predict supply and demand using what's known as power flow modeling. These models replicate all of the power plants and power lines and solve a physics-based optimization to determine where power goes and therefore what prices will be. That works fine if you have perfect information like the grid operator, but for everyone else trying to figure out what to do and what will happen, these models are really sensitive to errors and they don't have great results. And they also have struggles in scaling to the desired level of complexity and scenarios that customers increasingly need. And in turn, this leads to really inefficient decisions on the part of market participants like storage operators or facility managers that could be improved based on the metrics of price or risk. With AI models, on the other hand, we're taking extremely large data sets. We're using thousands of GPUs for training and inference. And our AI team is really modeling the grid down to this nodal level, 10,000 or more pricing points on the grid all the time. And this is, no mean feat. The AI is processing thousands of scenarios, and the result is much more accurate sort of views of forecasting and then therefore the optimizations that are made. And this technology forms the basis of what we're providing to customers in the ecosystem. The need for advanced computing is really just growing. The stats you say today on the slide are for today's grid, but all these things are increasing as we electrify, as we build more renewables, we experience continued extreme weather events. The volatility on the grid is only growing. When we started out with Gridmatic, we initially built our initial models using one GPU. We now reserve capacity on an ongoing basis from thousands of GPUs from cloud providers, and the scale continues to grow. So moving to the topic at hand, as Philip described, data centers are one of the biggest consumers of energy today, and that's only growing along with the growth of AI. This is really, the growth that we're seeing is staggering. If you think about potentially 7.5% of the overall electricity demand in the US coming from data centers in 2030, that's just a huge amount of growth considering all the other uses that we have for electricity in across the country today. And the context of this challenge, EdgeConneX and Gridmatic started discussions, and our common goal was really to understand how do we support growth in AI sustainably. And for us, to realize this growth in computation that the world needs, we need to address power, carbon dioxide, renewable energy challenges that go along with the growth of that power consumption. And we determined that commitment to time-matched or 24/7 carbon-free energy was the right approach to take. So a quick intro into what is known as 24/7 carbon-free energy, or CFE for short. There's a young but growing movement where businesses are matching their power consumption with carbon-free energy generation on the local grid at the same hour as the consumption occurs. The reason for doing this is to enable and incentivize the move to a fully decarbonized grid. There's growing adoption with what's known as 24/7 CFE, with large companies leading the way. And as a side note, there's recent decisions on hydrogen incentives in the US and before that in Europe, and those are going to require this hourly matching for green hydrogen production. And our anticipation is that will increase attention to this 24/7 CFE approach in a big way. And today, the leaders of 24/7 CFE, which is shown here on the slide, are more heavily weighted to the tech sector, but we think that this list may be more petrochemical and specifically hydrogen production companies weighted in the near future, in addition to expansion among existing sectors. I'll take a minute to describe how decarbonization is achieved without 24/7 CFE. The traditional approach is using what's known as RECs, or Renewable Energy Credits. One REC is awarded to, say, a wind or solar farm for every megawatt hour unit of energy, of renewable energy that's produced. A data center would then buy one REC for each megawatt hour of energy consumed, and that's true, across industries. This is a metric that lots of different users take into account. The challenge with this is that a REC can be bought by a consumer in New York from a wind farm in California that's generated at midnight. And so then when that consumer in New York is using lots of energy in the middle of the day when it's hot and needs cooling, that energy may be supplied by a peaker power plant that's run on fossil fuels. These RECs, the markets for RECs were designed to help support the initial wind and solar projects get built, because they do provide some incentive for building new renewable projects, but they don't really provide the right incentive to achieve full decarbonization of the grid. To really get to that level, 24/7 requires matching on an hour-by-hour basis from a local grid. The challenge with doing that is that matching consumption with production on an hourly basis is harder than doing it annually. Um, these charts here are showing energy produced or consumed in each of the 24 hours of a single day. And in a single day, consumption has various shapes, but it's often driven by cooling, which is highest in the middle of the day, like you see on the chart on the far left. And wind energy, in contrast, has high generation at night, like you see in blue in the middle chart. And then when you match those two things, you get the chart on the right, which is that the overlapping blue area is fine. That's where you're kind of producing energy that it's renewable energy and it's consuming it at the same time. But the wind farm doesn't match all the consumption. That's shown in pink, and that's not recognized as an hourly matched credit. And then consumption that isn't supplied by the wind farm in this case will come from a peaker power plant, and that's in gray. Now, this is a simplified example. One location, one source of power. But the point is that it's a challenge, and the answer here is to assemble complementary sources, wind, solar, other types of carbon-free energy, and more energy that's needed than is needed, so you have excess, but that gets to be expensive. And that's where AI forecasting can really help. More accurate predictions of energy supply and demand mean better hourly matching for this 24/7 challenge. There's really three specific tasks that the better AI forecasting can help with the 24/7 challenge. The first one is really advanced modeling on procurement. So looking at different portfolios that you could put together to provide carbon-free energy, how much wind, how much solar, maybe battery storage, even geothermal, nuclear. There's these different technologies that all have different profiles, costs, and outputs and variation in their outputs. And better modeling of a particular correlation of the outputs of these facilities, the better able you are to find the optimal portfolio and reduce over procurement of expensive sources. And that's part of what we do. In addition, there's a shorter time horizon, which is once you've put your portfolio together, you have to actually operate it to deliver the carbon-free energy matching goals that you have. So each day, you need to really optimize the scheduling of any of the dispatchable carbon-free generation assets. In our case, we control the dispatch today of large battery storage resources on the grid, but that could be other dispatchable resources that are carbon-free that exist today or in the future. And then finally, the third way that AI models can be important in achieving this goal is really in allowing end users to shift their operations and use the flexibility of their business processes to match supply and demand. These forecasts are especially important in cases where there's a time delay in receiving information about the carbon-free generation output. And sometimes that's unavoidable. You don't always know exactly if you contract with a wind or a solar farm exactly when it's producing. There may be market rules that require some delay in that information to go out. And so if you have flexibility in your production facility, you can shift your load around a little bit. You have to know when to do that, and that may require forecasts in order to do so. Coming back to EdgeConneX, Gridmatic and EdgeConneX work together to look at implementing 24/7 carbon-free energy at EdgeConNEX's Houston data center. And all facilities are unique, but we found in the case with EdgeConneX and looking at just across different data centers, that really the challenge with on-site generation is that most data centers don't have the roof, the land space to house sufficient solar or wind to serve their load. So just local generation is just not going to be enough, although it may help. And then self-procurement of going out to source PPAs, so these are power purchase agreements with wind and solar facilities, is challenging because sometimes you end up having to over-procure if you're just one facility that's going out and doing a procurement for a single data center. You don't have the benefit of necessarily using that across a range of portfolios. And it also requires staff. It's a dedicated thing to go out and negotiate and manage these power purchase agreements. And for very large companies, that may be okay, but for many other companies, that may not be the best use of their resources. And in this case, at EdgeConneX, they decided to choose Gridmatic as a carbon-free energy manager, or to solve these procurement challenges. So we signed a 2.5-year contract where Gridmatic would procure the carbon-free energy and guarantee the time match level to match that carbon-free energy to the data center's usage. One of the first steps in the partnership between EdgeConneX and Gridmatic was really to choose the location and the specific scope of the initial project, and then understand the operating profile there. As mentioned, we had picked a relatively small data center in Houston, Texas, which has a demand of 1.3 megawatts. I say small for a data center. It's still large on a relative scale. It's equivalent to the power consumption of roughly 1,000 residential houses in Texas. So now we've done that, and we can look back on a full year of supplying carbon-free energy to this data center. In 2022, we signed the contract and began flowing power at the very end of the year, and we set a target of 62% time-matched carbon-free energy for 2023. In April of 2023, we did a goal review, and we realized that we were able to increase our target for the year. And now in 2024, we see that we achieved 82% estimated carbon-free energy, looking backward at the year of 2023, and we're continuing to target that carbon-free energy in 2024. So we overachieved on our 2023 initial goal, and now we're evaluating expansion opportunities. There are a number of lessons learned through going through this exercise together over the last year plus. Um, Initially, once EdgeConneX determined that 24/7 carbon-free energy was a priority for their sustainability efforts, it took some work to figure out what the implementation would look like. It's 24/7 carbon-free energy is a relatively new approach to measuring and procuring energy, and it's not really readily available. So EdgeConneX had to be thoughtful about where to start and how to set targets. Picking a site was really an important milestone, and then understanding the characteristics of that site were very important. In Texas, consumers can pick from lots of different electricity plans, but it wasn't that simple for this data center. EdgeConneX found Gridmatic because their previous provider wasn't offering a 24/7 carbon-free energy option, which is true, I think, most providers. Gridmatic and EdgeConneX really had to collaborate to create a plan for this location, as opposed to just finding something available off the shelf. And then rather than doing a study or pure analysis, setting some goal for a decade far into the future, as we've seen some do, EdgeConneX decided to start with a pilot that could be implemented right away and set an initial target and then build from there. And I think that approach led to a really the initial successful outcome that we've seen is actually taking action and moving forward, which is something we're excited about working on. Here's a screenshot of the dashboard that shows the matching of carbon-free energy to EdgeConneX consumption. So starting at the upper left, the graph in yellow shows EdgeConNEX's usage across all meters in the data center, and that's over the course of many days, what the power consumption at the site looked like. On the lower left, shows what's called the grid mix, which is a mix of the type of energy that's coming from the grid if you were to just consume power from the grid without a separate power purchase agreement with a wind or solar farm. The gray on that chart on that lower left is the carbon-based generation, gas, coal, etc. And the green is the carbon-free, which in Texas includes a lot of wind and solar and also nuclear power. The upper right shows the 24/7 carbon-free energy matching. You can see that the overall shape of the combined colors there matches that the consumption on the chart in the upper left. The gray on the chart in the upper right is the carbon-based energy that's coming from the grid. The green is the carbon-free energy that's coming from the grid. Both those are estimates. And then the blue is the carbon-free energy that is supplied from Gridmatic that's designed to hit the target. And that is a specific and guaranteed amount. So we're looking at a combination of energy that's coming from carbon-free energy PPAs, and then when those aren't available, what is the residual profile of the energy that's coming from the grid. The bottom right chart shows the percentage uplift of carbon-free energy that EdgeConneX is getting relative to just the grid alone. So effectively, it's like a before and after picture of if you were just consuming energy from the grid, what would your carbon-free energy look like versus if you're actively managing with a CFE manager and trying to increase your carbon-free energy amount, what would it look like? With 1 year under our belt, we're now looking for next steps, and there's a few things that we're considering. We're looking at ways to match the carbon-free energy amount from 82% on an annual basis, which is what we achieved in 2023, up to targeting 100% carbon-free energy. And there may be different ways to get there. We might leverage on-site demand flexibility by shifting HVAC cooling loads or other types of loads on site. We could purchase additional types of carbon-free energy beyond what we have today, or employing more battery storage resources. And then we're also evaluating what other data centers, in addition to the Houston site, might be good targets for committing to 24/7 carbon-free energy. And finally, we're doing emissions impacts on these changes, because the discussion today has been around carbon-free or not carbon-free, and ultimately we want everything to be carbon-free. But while it's not, looking at the emissions of all the resources is a relevant figure as well. We're really appreciative of EdgeConneX's partnership with Gridmatic and their leadership in really forward thinking and driving this mission forward, their respect for sustainability, and also, using AI techniques that we're excited about to really try to tackle climate impact. So that's the end of our presentation. Thank you for joining us, and we really appreciate you taking the time, and happy to discuss further if you all have any questions.
Yeah, thank you, David. This is Philip here. I want to thank everybody as well. In addition to Gridmatic, right, and as David said, around sustainability, leveraging AI for the future, it's one thing that we don't compete on. So we're very open, we're very transparent. We're all in it for the planet, for the environment, and so if you'd like to learn more, reach out to David, reach out to myself. We would also like to learn from you in terms of other tools. We look to leverage NVIDIA to leverage the Omniverse and create digital twins of the data center and evaluate all the data that we have in terms of how we use power, cooling, water to manage the data center infrastructure, so to continually be efficient and as green as we possibly can. So again, open to share anything that we've teased today with you guys and shown, and certainly open to learning more as well from others who might be listening to this today. So thank you again.